Welcome everyone to another episode of My Golden Life. I'm Lisa Neller, your host, and today I have a very special guest, and we're going to talk about reinvention in midlife and beyond, and some other things. But I have with me Dr. Brenda Combs, and Dr. Brenda Combs, ambassador of inspiration, is a symbol of resilience and an inspiring figure, celebrated for her transformation from homelessness and addiction to renowned motivational speaker and advocate. She holds a master's degree in special education and a doctorate in organizational leadership from Grand Canyon University. I used to work there, by the way. We'll have to talk about that.
Lopes up, lopes up.
Lopes up. Featured on CNN, the Today Show, the Wendy Williams Show, and in Reader's Digest, Dr. Combs' advocacy work supports the homeless and domestic violence survivors, earning her recognition as an Arizona Woman of Inspiration by the WNBA Phoenix Mercury and honor by the Arizona House of Representatives. Her life story powerfully demonstrates the human capacity to overcome challenges and inspire others towards achieving their greatest potential. Welcome, Dr. Combs.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, yes. So you have an extraordinary story, and I think that what comes out of that story is that human beings are resilient, and they can come out the other side and transform their lives and find joy and happiness. Is that kind of it in a nutshell?
Oh, that's definitely it in a nutshell in the Reader's Digest version. That's exactly it.
Well, we don't want the Reader's Digest version. So what I'm going to ask you to do is share your story with our audience. Tell us from where you came and what you went through and all the things, and then we'll take it from there.
All righty. So I was born in Mississippi, but raised in Arizona, in a small town in Arizona, Flagstaff, Arizona. And I had a really traumatic experience in first grade, where I was discriminated against. A little boy called me the N-word and spit in my face. And I was the only little girl of color in that class. And I ran up to my teacher, who I was looking for her to, hug me and protect me and tell me everything was okay. And I told her, that Grover had just spit in my face and called me the N-word and called me stupid, and he threw mud in my hair. And she looked me in the eye and she said, "Brenda, wipe your face and get in line." And I felt my soul left my body. I was confused. I didn't understand. Kids were laughing at me as I walked in line and had to wipe spit off of my face. It was just, that's probably when I developed PTSD, because that's when I started having nightmares. And I went home and told my parents, and because I was so young, I don't know what happened, but school was really, really difficult for me. By the time I got to sixth grade, there was another little Black girl in my class, and I felt like, wow, somebody that looks like me. I have a friend. And it's not that I didn't make friends with some of the other girls, but the boys by far did not like me. And it was just simply because I was Black. And so the issue that changed everything was the teacher was doing a math problem, and me and my little friend Debbie, we were sitting in the back of the classroom. She made us sit in the back, and she was doing math, and I couldn't see the board, and little did I know I was nearsighted. And so I raised my hand and I asked her if we could, move up closer so that I could see. And she yelled at me and told me that Debbie and I smelled and looked like monkeys, and told us to get out of her classroom. So of course, we, kids started laughing. We get up and we walk out of the classroom, and Debbie starts crying, and I got angry. So I grabbed Debbie's hand and I said, "You know what, we're leaving. Let's go find my mom." So we walk from school, two little Black girls in the late 60s. We're walking by ourselves, and we go to my mom's job, tell her what happened. To make a long story short, that was the last day that I was at that school. My parents then put me in the school in my own community. However, it was difficult to adjust to that school. Now, that school was mainly Hispanic, Native American, and Black. But the kids at that school made fun of me and said that I talked like a white girl, and it was like I can't win.
Can't win. Yeah.
I can't win. And I even got bullied by some of those girls, my own people, my own other girls of color. So school was really rough. So by the time I made it to high school, I kind of isolated. And one day I overheard two girls talking about how they could graduate from high school early by going to summer school and getting their credits. So I thought, well, maybe this will make me happy. Maybe it's these high school kids, these kids who have bullied me most of my life. Maybe if I can just graduate early and go to college, I'll be happy. So my parents allowed me to go to summer school for 2 summers. I graduated a year before my graduating class. I graduated from high school technically on a Friday, and I started NAU the following Monday. And it was a shock to my system. I regret doing it now because I was so young, so naive, and so unprepared for the adult world. And to top it off, I missed some of the great things of high school, like going to prom and Friday night lights, football and track meets, and senior ditch day, the most important one of them all. um, but I did go back and actually participate in the actual graduation ceremony the following year with my class. But I started college and just really didn't fit in with that group. And eventually I did meet a group of girls that accepted me, and that was the party girls, because they accept everyone. And I found myself partying with these girls and feeling accepted finally for the first time. I truly feel like I'm a part of. The problem was, because I felt so isolated, I became a party animal. So they would party and go home and go to class the next day, and I'd have a hangover and couldn't get up and go to class, and eventually started dropping classes and failing classes and dropping classes, and ended up dropping out of school and getting a job, just to have a job, but not anything fulfilling or meaningful. And then I got a boyfriend, and he introduced me to marijuana and crack cocaine. I came home one day from work, and him and another friend were smoking something in this glass pipe, and I didn't know what it was, but they were like, "Hey, do you want to try this?" And I was like, I just want to fit in like everybody else. So I was like, "Okay." And I truly feel that the very first time that I did it, I was addicted. I couldn't stop. And because the feeling, it took away every problem. It took away my emotional pain. It took away the mental pain. I actually had no worries as long as I was under that spell, that influence. But the moment that high started to drop and reality set back in, I started to feel bad about myself and started to have the nightmares. And that's how the addiction for me started. 10 years of being a drug addict, which eventually led to me to, of course, losing my job, losing the boyfriend, losing the car, losing the apartment, sleeping on this person's couch, sleeping with this man, staying at this place, going to this hotel, eventually homeless and underneath the 7th Avenue Bridge in downtown Phoenix. And in that time frame of 10 years of being homeless, I was shot in a drive-by shooting. Took me a year to learn how to walk again. Stabbed in the back with a broken beer bottle. Burned with cigarettes because I took drugs from the dope man and couldn't pay him back, so he burned me with cigarettes. Beaten with a water hose. I tried to commit suicide. Hit by a car. Overdosed several times. And eventually my life changed one day after being on a 7-day binge. I woke up in an alley on a couch when it was 115 degrees outside and realized someone had stolen the shoes off of my feet. And I ended up having to walk a mile in 115-degree heat with no shoes on. And when I got down to the park where the homeless were living at that time in Phoenix, my feet were burned, blistered. I at some point passed out. And when I came to, I looked around the environment that I was in. I was in this beautiful park. Today it's beautiful, but back then it was just hopeless. There was no hope. I looked around and all I saw was despair and homelessness and addiction and pain and veterans and old people. And I just felt like, God, I don't want to be homeless anymore. And I don't want to be a drug addict. God, I'm begging you, please take this away from me. And in that moment, I felt a cool breeze of wind blowing on my skin. And I felt like it was the voice of God. I could hear in my heart something saying, I hear you, Brenda. I got you. It's going to be okay. And I literally jumped up and I told everyone, you know what? I'm going to go turn myself in. Because typically when things go wrong and you're in that element, and of course I was in and out of jail, in and out of rehab, 13 different rehab programs. So I was already on probation. I had already absconded. So I knew I was going to go to prison, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to go turn myself in because I can't do this. I'd rather be locked up or dead, but I cannot go through this. So I went and turned myself in, and I was prepared to do my 3 years. And my plan was to get out, go back home, make amends to my family, and then go to school, get an education, and become a productive member of society. However, my PO, and I guess God had other plans, because when I went and turned myself in, she did not sign the warrant. She looked me in my face and I was dirty. I smelled. I was not clean. It's not like I was taking a shower as a homeless woman. It's not like I had brushed my teeth. I was a hot mess. And she welcomed me into her office. She shook my hand. She didn't like cover up her nose, or she was very respectful and loving and compassionate. And she looked me in the eye and she said, Brenda Combs, I don't know how to explain this. There's something different about you. And I'm not going to sign that warrant. I'm going to give you one more opportunity to turn your life around because I believe in you. And I will believe in you until you are able to believe in yourself. And I said, okay. She gave me a resource book. We opened it. I put my finger down and I said, okay, let's call this one. The program that I happened to go into was called Center for Healing. Now, Center for Healing, great program, but no different than any other program that I had been in, because I had been in 12 different programs. So if you've been in one, the basic program is the same. The decor different, and maybe the people are different, but the basic program is basically the same. The difference was I was finally at a point where I was ready to listen and take a few suggestions. So I went into program number 13 and I literally did just that. I listened and I took a few suggestions and I got clean for the first time in over a decade. And I did sober living for 18 months. And then I went back down to the zone to see if there was anyone out there that I could help. And I ran into Pops. At that time, Pops, I think maybe was in his 60s. And Pops helped me when I was homeless. And so when I saw him, he had one shoe that was too big and one, the heel was cut out of it, and he looked like a hobo. And he said, baby, I'm hungry. So I went to Church's Chicken on the corner and I got him a 2-piece and a biscuit and a soda. And I took it to him and he said, Brenda, when you come back, do you think maybe you could bring me a pair of shoes? And I said, sure. So 2 weeks later, when I got paid, I went back and I went to the dollar store and I had gotten some toothpaste, some hygiene items. And I went to the Goodwill and I got a backpack and some t-shirts, some pants and some shoes for him. And I went back to Church's Chicken. And this time I got him a 10-piece and a big soda. And then after that, people started saying, Brenda, will you bring me some shoes and something to eat? And that's when I thought, oh my gosh, you know what? I'm going to help other people, because if I can do it, they can do it. And that's when I started my nonprofit called Finding My Shoes Foundation, where we go back out down to the zone where I was homeless, and we pass out shoes and clothing and water and hygiene items to those who are in need. Now, granted, that's not ending homelessness. It literally is a Band-Aid, but it's a Band-Aid to let people know that we love you and we care about you, and it takes a village to help raise a village, and to let them know that, hey, even though things may seem dark right now, if I can do it, you can do it. And after I got clean, I did get married, and I married a man that I met in rehab, and we had a baby, and my husband relapsed. He couldn't stay clean, so I became a single mom. And I realized that, here I am, a Black woman with a criminal record who used to be homeless and a drug addict with no education, who's now a single mother to a child who has special needs. I'm a statistic on every single level that you could count in America. And so I knew then that I needed an education just to get on a level playing field, not to get ahead in life, but just to get level. And so I completed my undergrad in 2 years in human services, my master's in a year at Grand Canyon University, because they allowed me to triple up on my classes. And that got the attention of the White House. And at my master's graduation, I was honored by former First Lady Laura Bush, naming me Distinguished Teacher of the Year. A week later, I was on CNN, where Grand Canyon University, I was on the CNN Heroes show, and Grand Canyon surprised me with a full ride scholarship, enrolling me as their first student in their brand new doctoral program back then. And 3 years later, I graduated in the first graduating class of doctors from Grand Canyon University, making history as one of the first doctors, the first female and first African American. And after that, during my doctoral program, I married a man who I actually had met while I was homeless. And he saw me on the Today Show or CNN, and it inspired him to go to school. And we met during my doctoral program and got married. And we've been married for 14 years now. After we got married, my son, he had suffered a massive stroke at birth. He made a full recovery. When he was around 12 or 13, he brought home 4 homeless teenage boys who we took in. I adopted one legally. Eventually, we had 5 boys. One's from Trinidad, 2 from Ethiopia, and 1 from Eritrea, 1 from Chicago. And we became an enlarged family. And then Pops, who used to be out on the streets, called me one day and said, baby, I don't want to be out here anymore. Can you come get me? And I went and picked him up, and I brought him home with me. And he lived with us for over 20 something years until the day he died. He died just as COVID was hitting. But changed his life. He got to live out the rest of his life, in a beautiful home with me and the rest of the family. And I turned my life around, and now I'm 62 years old. I'm a best-selling author. I run sober living homes with my husband. We have 5 sober living homes called Making Things Better Sober Living. I am 27 years clean. He is 24 years clean. All of our boys graduated from high school. We have 3 basketball players. One actually just signed with an NBA league overseas, and he is playing in Ireland. And then my other 2 boys are here in the States that play basketball. And then I have an entrepreneur, and another son who's a DJ, and one who runs a hookah lounge. So
What a story, Dr. Combs. I know you've shared this a lot before. I want to ask you, when you first went into sober living, not the first time, but the last time that you went in, did you struggle? Did you just, did you have a change of mind? Like, what was it that got you through that first year of, finally I'm going to do this now?
That last day of being homeless, that was it. I couldn't do it. That the burns and the cuts and the blisters on my feet, walking in 115-degree heat. I believe I eventually did go to the hospital before making it into the rehab, the emergency room for my feet. And the pain was just excruciating. I just could not take another day of not being able to bathe or trying to find a place to use the bathroom, not being able to eat, take a shower, comb my hair, brush. Like I was done. But it took a decade and me being raped and beaten and stabbed and shot and overdosing and all the, any one of those things was more than enough for an average person to say, hey, I'm not making good choices. Maybe I should do something different. Um, but instead, that was the journey that I was on, and it was all simply because of the addiction. But I can actually take it all the way back from that very first episode of being 5, 6 years old, and being spit in the face. And through therapy and counseling, I realize now that I actually suffered PTSD at 6. And back then, I'm 62 now. So back then, when I was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, especially in the African American community, in my community, we didn't go to counseling. There was no counseling available. There was no therapy. It wasn't even I don't even know if we even knew what that was back then. It was certainly not open for discussion. And my parents are kind of like, not wanting to share negative, like family business, maybe talk to the pastor, but that was basically, I didn't get any help. And more so, my parents probably talked about it amongst themselves. Well, nothing was explained to me. Nothing was said like, you didn't deserve this. We love you. We're going to be like, they did things to show it, but it was nothing was ever explained to me. Like, it was very traumatic. And so I feel that that is why my personality gravitated towards anything that was semi nice and accepting. I believe that's the main reason that I became such a full-fledged drug addict, and just didn't have to feel. Because as hard as it was being an addict, it got to the point to where it was easier to be an addict, but it was 10 times harder to get clean and sober, because now you have to deal with the judgment of society, and not just the judgment of yourself and the guilt, but then the people that you've hurt or used or took advantage of or stole from or robbed or broke their heart or made them cry, or your family, or you lost your family and your friends behind your addiction, or your church or your job. Like, now you have to try to fight to get back. And people always question if you're really clean. Did you learn your lesson? Some are never going to forgive. There's no amount of amendments that you can do to make them believe, trust. You're constantly fighting to prove yourself. Then, even though I paid my debt to society, do you know how difficult it is to get a job? To get a job, plus being a person of color with no education and a criminal record. I mean, you're scraping for just anything. And discrimination is real. It was then, I mean, it still is now, but it was 10 times harder to try and get a job with benefits of something that was meaningful, because of my background. And even now, maybe things are better in terms of trying to find a job, because you can now get a job and work from home and never have to visually be seen. But having that criminal record, like, you pay your dues, but you really don't ever pay your dues, because there's always going to be that part of society that's never going to forgive. And I find that anyone who has never had a family member or someone involved in the legal system, they have the least amount of understanding and compassion. Now, if their cousin, nephew, niece, or father gets a DUI or something, they have a little bit more understanding. But typically society, it's difficult, to get back in. However, for me, I did not let that hold me down. And I also didn't use it as an excuse to not be responsible and accountable and to do the best that I could, because I could only do the best for me. I had to eventually put society and others out of my mind. And my counselor told me something that literally changed my whole way of thinking and actually put me on the pathway of becoming Dr. Brenda Combs. She told me, Brenda, not everyone's going to be a friend or a fan, and not everyone's going to be a foe or an enemy. What other people think about you is none of your business, good or bad. And the moment that you realize that the people who are in your life, enjoy them while they're there, and when they leave or run away or cut you off or pass away, whatever it is, enjoy the time that you had and move on, because there's going to be someone else coming to replace that person, because not everything lasts forever. Even relationships are temporary. Now, whether temporary is 30 years, 60 years, 3 months, 3 days, you have to stop worrying about what other people think about you and focus on how to make you the best version of you. Then she instructed me to take assertiveness training class, which I did not want to do. And then she forced me to go to the Center Against Sexual Abuse to actually deal with all of my other trauma and the sex trafficking and sexual trauma. And even though I didn't want to do those things, I just knew that I would rather try that than go back to crack alley. And so it was difficult, but I just kept telling myself this is better than being back there. And before I knew it, one day turned into 1 year to 5 years to 10 years to 15 years to here I am. And if I can do it, anyone can do it. And everyone has a story. Everyone has a story. Everyone has experienced something. And it may not have been as much as what I went through, but it's equally as traumatizing and demoralizing and affecting you, whatever it is that you've gone through, because we've all gone through something. So being that we've all gone through something, what I like to do is just remind people, yeah, we've all been through something, but we can all overcome anything, anything. Because if you think about it, if you think about the worst situation you've ever been in your life and thought, God, I don't know how I was going to deal with that, but here you are today, you've made it through it. So therefore, we know that we can make it through. Now, yes, sometimes we do need a helping hand or some encouragement or words of wisdom or someone to say, no, girl, do not do that. Don't go in there. This is not good for you. It's not healthy. And you also know that sometimes people have to learn their lessons. We can't always learn from other people's mistakes. Sometimes you have to make those mistakes. You got to fall. You got to, fall flat on your face and realize, okay, she actually was right. I, I should have listened. But the bottom line is that everybody has gone through something. Everyone makes mistakes. But I think the other crucial part is being responsible and accountable and not always pointing the finger. Because I know a lot of times when it comes to, and I'm speaking from personal experience, I used to point the finger. Well, they didn't want to hire me and I couldn't get a job and he doesn't like me. And they were talking about me and, oh, it was because I was Black. Oh, because I'm a girl. Oh, because I don't have a degree. Oh, because, I didn't graduate. I mean, you can always find a million things to nitpick at. But the bottom line is that you have to do that self-inventory and say, okay, what part did I play? The bottom line is the part that I played is I was homeless. I was a drug addict. I was in and out of jail. I did do some stupid things. I did make terrible mistakes. I did break the law. That's the part that I played. I fed you these chapters of my book because I hand wrote it for you. That's the part that I played. Therefore, I can't get mad when I literally supplied you with script, camera, and budget. So when I start to feel myself wanting to do this, the pointing, no, what part did I play? Well, this is the part that I played. So now I got to be accountable and responsible for myself. However, once I know that I've done the best that I can to rectify and move forward, I cannot nor will I let someone hold me hostage to my past, because that's not who I am anymore. Nor am I going to beg and plead for someone to believe or be my friend or want to spend time with me or take my advice, because there's more than one way to do something, and my way may not work for you. So I've also learned, stay in my lane, help where I can, don't take anything personal. Don't take anything personal. Take nothing personal, because I have found most of the time it's not as bad as you think, or they weren't even thinking about you at all, or it's something completely different. You know, I know for me, especially when I have dealt with self-esteem and self-value, self-worth issues, I can really make a situation bad in my own head.
Yep.
And, so for me, using positive affirmations, hey, Brenda, I believe in myself and my ability to do my best because I'm intelligent and I'm capable of achieving greatness. I can learn, I will learn, I must learn. I'm going to make the right choice. I'm going to do the right thing, even when no one is watching. Many times you have to encourage yourself because, life does get tough. And, and sometimes it's easy to get into a little pity party. And that's when sometimes you have to literally snap yourself out and say, no, girl, not today. Not
Well,
today.
it's true. It's unfortunate that you had teachers and you had people in your classroom when you were so young treat you the way you did. I hope that's not happening now, but the truth of it is, well, there's a couple truths. One is that we do experience trauma, as you said. There's big traumas and little traumas and all kinds of traumas. And then there is that humiliation and that judgment, and people laugh at you and people say things. And that is part of the human experience. Like that's why people are so afraid to do anything, because they know they're going to get criticized. And the
Right.
more you speak up and the better you get and the bigger you get, the more criticism you're going to get. And you have to have a really strong constitution and a belief and tell yourself over and over. It's a whole mental game, right? But the game
Yes.
is worth playing, because
Yes.
because then you get to speak and help other people through your own experience and your own knowledge and your wisdom, and your consciousness has raised so high, and now that other people are living at this lower level, and that lower level, those are the people that are going to be lashing out, and they're just not aligned with I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, the best way to live, the loving way to live. Show us your earrings, Dr. Combs. Can you just do that like for me real quick? Love. I love those love earrings. I think that
I picked these because I oftentimes will tell people that I feel truly that the answer to every problem, every situation in life, politics, religion, education, entertainment, sports, I feel that the answer is, if people realize and understand the power of forgiveness, understanding the difference between compassion, sympathy, and empathy, and then treating everyone 100% with love and kindness, that is truly the answer to everything, because if you understand forgiveness and the difference between empathy, sympathy, being love, kind, and compassionate, that means that we would come together and we would work everything out, learning how to agree, to disagree, to try and figure out what's going to be best. But the way that that happens is you really have to understand what forgiveness really means. What does it mean to forgive? Because if you're able to forgive, we can now move forward. But true forgiveness, it's like, I remember when my boys were younger, and one of them would do something and I would, have them, hey, apologize. And then he would like say apologize, but I really don't mean it, or take it back, like,
Yeah.
and trying to learn like that's not how we resolve things, And so I feel like if we can truly understand those four little simple things, we could have world peace. We could figure out the solution to homelessness. We could help people help themselves. We could, yes, we could really impact the entire world. But it really does take a true understanding of forgiveness. And that's hard, because it really takes, I feel sometimes it really takes strength to either say, I'm sorry, I apologize, and really mean it. But it also takes strength to say, you hurt me deeply, but I accept. Let's start over. That's very powerful and difficult, very
Well,
difficult to achieve,
it's funny
but
you
not
bring that up
impossible.
because tonight I'm going to a presentation called the Negotiated Apology. And
Oh,
it's
wow.
it's a young attorney. He is passionate about helping people understand forgiveness, understand how to say I'm sorry. What does that really look like? How can you communicate that? How does it feel in your body? Those kinds of things. So I'm looking forward to hearing that presentation.
Hmm.
But I want to move on to another subject because I value education very much. And even if you're self-taught, now my father was, he never went to college, and he ended up being a professor of music at the University of Houston because he was well, he had played music, he played violin so beautifully throughout his life, and played with the Houston Symphony and the Houston Grand Opera and so on and so forth, and taught, so he ended up at this university as a professor, right? um, and he was self-taught in a whole lot of other things. But I also really appreciate getting your bachelor's degree. I appreciate getting your associates, getting your bachelor's, getting your master's, and getting your PhD. Like, those are high level thinking, um, and energy. Like, you have to put a lot of time and energy and thought into getting through those programs, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
I used to enroll for those programs. I never enrolled for doctoral, but I enrolled for bachelor's and master's degrees. And the people that were coming to Grand Canyon University, which is where I was working, many of them were in midlife. They had regretted
Right.
that they had not gone to college, and it was scary for them because they were working full time. They had children. How am I going to get through this? So I had just such respect for people who went ahead, enrolled in the program, got through the program, and just like you did. So tell me, can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what does it take if someone's listening and thinking, I'd kind of like to change my career. I'd like to go back to school. I'd like to reinvent myself in midlife. What's it going to take?
So for me, what I'm going to tell them is it's going to take time, and it's going to take for you to really, you really have to be dedicated to it. Um, but it's doable. And you really need to think about how fast you want to achieve it. So when I did my master's program, like I said, I doubled up, but typically you're doing one class at a time. So, and I can't remember if some of my classes were 5 weeks or 8 weeks. But what I did and what I suggest to all working adults who later in life want to go back to school, you have to literally work out a schedule and make it to where it is realistic. Because what I have found from both teaching at Grand Canyon University and also being a student at Grand Canyon University is that the biggest thing is time will get away from you. So you are better off knowing how you learn, what your modality is, what works for you. Some people are good at creating outlines. This is what works for them. Me, I was a writer, so I would answer my discussion questions on Monday. I'd start my, topic on Tuesday. By Friday, I was done with my assignment. It was due Sunday night, maybe Saturday. I might review it or Sunday before turning it in. But the bottom line is it really comes to how badly you want it and how you make it fit your lifestyle. I was considered a full-time online student, plus I worked a full-time job. My boys were all involved in sports. I also was a member of the praise and worship team for my church. So I had choir rehearsal, the boys had practices, games, but I made it work and I did it at a pace that I knew that I could be successful. And another thing that I did was when I started, I never stopped. I didn't take a break. I didn't take a break in between summer, and I kept going because as a working adult, life will continue to life. Things are going to happen. Kids are going to get hurt. Cars are going to break down. Stuff is going to happen. So I never stopped until I was walking across the stage.
Yeah, that's commitment. That is dedication. That is not
Yes.
easy to do. I know. And you're in a rhythm. Why not? You might as well if you're only going to do it for a year. Now, when I was enrolling, they didn't allow master students to take more than one at a time. Sometimes
Yes.
on a rare occasion they could take two, depending on the program. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So let's really just talk about real quick your spiritual life. Like, how has that enhanced your world and your healing and all of that? Do you want to talk about that?
Oh yeah, yeah. So my spiritual life really, I was 5 years old. My mother was taking piano lessons and she was playing the song What a Friend We Have in Jesus in the key of F. She'd been doing it for months and she'd get to this one part. So I still hear it today. And she could not get that part right. And I feel like I literally heard this in my sleep for an eternity, but it was probably months. So one day she's doing it, her and the piano teacher, she's a little frustrated, and the teacher says, let's take a break. They go into the kitchen to get tea. I come and I crawl up on top of the bench because I was small, I couldn't really reach it. And I would sit on the phone book on the bench so that I could reach the piano. And I started playing What a Friend We Have in Jesus in F. And next thing I know, my mom and the piano teacher come out and they're like, and my mom is crying. And that was the last day she ever played the piano. And in turn, she goes to church and tells everyone, Brenda played What a Friend We Have in Jesus. So then, of course, they call me up, they put books on there, and I started playing. So when I was 8, I started playing the piano at my church on a regular basis and became the pianist and started writing songs and little skits at church. And I believe I was 12 when I got baptized. I think I was around 12 at a church revival. So, I was raised with two parents who were believers. They were Christians. We went to church together. They didn't just take us to church and drop us off. We all went as a family. So we were raised going to church. We were raised to be loving and kind and to help others and to help take care of your family. And um, so I've always been a believer. I have seen miracles happen. Um, and and I also know that for me in my lifestyle, I believe that prayer is a part of like my daily meditation when I wake up in the morning. So maybe some people call it meditation. It's my morning prayer, how I get started. And usually every morning, and now you hit 50 and it just seems like something mentally changes. So at 62, it's like I wake up every morning like, God, thank you, God, I am still here another day to be with my boys, another day to call my parents, another day. My grandmother will be turning 96 this year, and I'm planning on spending her 96th birthday with her. So I wake up in the morning thankful that my family, my boys, like everyone is happy and healthy. I wake up with gratitude. Um, and I try to stay positive. If I can do something about a situation, it took me many years. I was definitely over 50 before I finally got this one. If I can do something, I'm going to do it. And if there's nothing that I can do, this is where I have to turn it over to God and say, okay, Lord, I've done the best that I can. This battle belongs to you. And it took me a long time to really let go and let God, because I would let go, but then take it back. And I think my grandmother was the one who told me that if you start worrying about something, that's just the devil's meditation. Like, you want, why give it to him if you're going to keep taking it back? Why give it to God if you keep taking it back and worrying? You might as well just stay in the worrying pot and keep stewing. Well, okay, Grandma, I don't want to stew anymore. So, well, then just stop thinking about it.
So many people do that. They go to church, they hear the word, and it's like, don't worry, don't worry. God says, don't worry. And they worry anyway. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, you're not listening.
Exactly.
But Dr.
Yeah.
Combs, I just want to say you're a miracle. I'm actually older than you, like 4 years older than you. So I get the aging thing, and I'm really into I am ageless. I am ageless. I am ageless.
Yes.
As I learn all the things that I'm doing and the skill sets that I'm learning at my age, and I'm like, you know what? These skill sets are required no matter how old you are, whether you're
Yeah.
20 or you're 80. So
Right.
just learn them and don't worry about it. You'll be fine. We still have a long way to go. We still have a lot to do. So
Right.
tell us what you're passionate about now, what you're doing now, where people can find you so that yeah, they can follow you.
Okay, so right now I have a theater group. It's called BRC Theater Group. I write all of our plays, so they're all original, and the majority of mine are murder mystery plays. So we're doing a play this year. We finally got sponsorship, and our first play this season is going to be at Tempe Improv on October 21st, and it's a really good deal. Tickets are just $10. VIP is 20. And it's a really good story. Five friends, one dinner. Someone mysteriously gets killed, and we want the audience to participate. So it's a really fun play. And the other big thing is I'm also a best-selling author. So I wrote this book called Finding My Shoes. And you can get this on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, Target, eBay. And I wrote it, and it tells my life story, and it does have pictures in it of me from when I was actually homeless, and a picture of my now husband when he was homeless, and my children. And I'm currently working on an anthology book called She Rose. This book is a series. So this is the first one that I did some years ago, of real life sheroes who share their real life stories to encourage other women. The new one that I'm coming out with is called She Rose, the Entrepreneur Series. And this is going to feature 12 female entrepreneurs answering 10 questions that will share their story, their entrepreneurial journey, and then with a call to action. And I'm actually looking for 10 more women who would like to be a published author, increase their influence. But writing a book it's a big task. Writing a chapter, however, is a lot more feasible. And if writing your chapter means that all you have to do is answer 10 questions that I've already established, 10 questions, your chapter's done. And this will be a bestseller. 4 of my books that I've published on BRC Publishing have been bestsellers. So you can catch me on all social media platforms, LinkedIn, Twitter, or I'm not Twitter, X, sorry,
Yeah, I still call it
Facebook,
Twitter.
yeah, Instagram, TikTok. You can also reach out to me on my website, brendacombs.com. You can also email me, drbrendacombs at gmail. And all of my pages are public. I'm very open to conversation, meeting with people. I'm also a motivational speaker. Tomorrow I'm going to be speaking with the organization SCORE through the Small Business Association. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm working on over the next
That's a
couple of
lot.
months.
I imagine your to-do list is this long every day, and I imagine you could probably teach some time management skills and all of that. But well, what a delight. I'll put all that stuff in the show notes, and it's been delightful to have you. Thank you for being my guest today. I hope we can reconnect again soon.
It would
And
be nice.
yeah, yeah, this was fun. So, for everyone who was watching or listening, thank you so much. And we will see you on the next episode. Have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.